This interview is brought to you by the LGR Series, which recenters the discussion on how local government reorganisation can succeed by placing communities and councillors at its heart. The LGR Series is a project by Coalface Insight. To learn more about Coalface, visit coalface.uk. In this episode, series editor Rowan Cole speaks with former councillor Andrew Kelly about local government reorganisation and democratic accountability in larger unitary councils. With over a decade in local government, including serving as cabinet member for planning, Kelly brings first-hand experience of planning, decision-making, governance, and community representation. He offers a grounded perspective on political legitimacy and the day-to-day realities of councillor casework during structural change. Visit localgovernmentreorganisation.co.uk to read or download this interview. Find out more about the series, access our LGR resources, or contribute to the project. Former councillor Andrew Kelly on the democratic deficit. Why bigger government forces, harder democratic trade-offs? Local government reorganisation is frequently framed as an exercise in efficiency. Fewer councils, larger scale, clearer strategic capacity. Andrew Kelly's contribution cuts across that narrative. Drawing on his experience as a long-serving councillor and former cabinet member for planning, he argues that the real risk of reorganisation lies not in systems or savings, but in democratic legitimacy. Kelly's perspective sits alongside the operational concerns raised by senior officers and the strategic ambitions articulated by council leaders. But his focus is different. He concentrates on the human mechanics of representation and accountability, and on what happens when scale increases faster than democratic capacity. His core question is deceptively simple. In a significantly larger authority, who is heard and who is lost? Representation is not a technical variable. Kelly challenges the assumption that reducing councillor numbers is a neutral act of streamlining. For him, it represents a qualitative change in the relationship between elected members and place. He points to the arithmetic of the proposed unitary model. In Walton-on-Thames in Surrey, residents currently have access to a combined total of borough and county councillors amounting to 11. Under the reorganised East Surrey Council, that falls to 4. Kelly's concern is not symbolic, it is practical. That is not enough to know the area as well as we used to, he says. It just is not. At that scale, councillors become thinner, not sharper. Casework volumes increase, local knowledge becomes harder to maintain, and informal intelligence about emerging issues weakens. Kelly is blunt about the implications. I could not do the casework for that many people properly, he admits. The risk is not simply workload stress. Kelly argues that it changes who can realistically serve. As the role becomes more demanding, representation drifts away from local altruism and towards semi-professional politics. Those without flexible employment, independent income, or party infrastructure will struggle to sustain it. Over time, that narrows the social and experiential base of local government. Planning decisions require democratic judgment. Kelly's concerns sharpen when planning is brought into the frame. He rejects the idea that planning is, or ever can be, a purely technical function. Policy provides structure, but it does not remove judgment. Concepts such as material harm, visual impact, character, and street scene are inherently interpretive. What you think is wonderful, I might think is hideous, he notes. That subjectivity is not a flaw. It is precisely why democratic oversight matters. In larger authorities, the distance between decision-makers and affected communities increases. If planning decisions migrate upwards to remote committees, or are delegated without meaningful local scrutiny, the democratic check weakens. Kelly is clear about what is lost. Politicians have a check and balance, he says. They can be voted out. Officers cannot. That distinction matters, particularly in contentious or finely balanced cases. Without visible political accountability, trust erodes, even where decisions are technically sound. Restructure fatigue and churn without advantage. Kelly is skeptical about the repeated cycles of local government reform. Drawing on past reorganisations, he argues that promised efficiencies are routinely overstated, while democratic costs are consistently understated. Each iteration introduces disruption, complexity, and cultural fracture. All we do is create complications, he observes. The energy absorbed by merger, harmonization, and internal restructuring is energy not spent improving services or rebuilding trust. He describes this as churn without advantage. The system moves, but does not clearly improve. In the process, local identity weakens and engagement thins. This risk is not evenly distributed. Kelly warns that areas without strong parish or town council structures, such as Walton, will experience a sharper democratic deficit than places where hyper-local governance remains embedded. Without deliberate intervention, representation becomes uneven by design. The overlooked risk of transition. Kelly also draws attention to a transitional risk that is often downplayed, the period between old structures ending and new ones bedding in. As vesting approaches, political discipline can fray. Councillors facing abolition or retirement are less constrained by group loyalty or future accountability. Decision-making becomes unpredictable at precisely the point when stability is most needed. He also questions the democratic mandate of the new authorities. Larger electoral divisions, lower turnout, and elections dominated by the most mobilized or angry voters risk producing councils with thin legitimacy. That is a fragile foundation for controversial planning decisions. The underlying warning. Kelly's argument is not anti-reform. It is a warning about trade-offs that are too easily ignored. Scale can deliver strategic capacity. It can simplify governance maps and strengthen negotiating power, but it also stretches representation, dilutes accountability, and changes the character of local democracy. Efficiency has a democratic price. If local knowledge becomes thinner, casework unmanageable, and planning decisions more distant, new authorities may find themselves formally powerful but politically exposed. As Kelly concludes, from a democratic point of view, it does lead to people's voices being less listened to. That is the risk reorganisation must confront, not assume away. That was our interview with former councillor Andrew Kelly. We thank him for this contribution to the project. Learn more about local government reorganisation and the LGR series. Visit localgovernmentroganisation.co.uk. Our next interview, we're talking with Eric Owens, former Planning Service Director at the reorganised Buckinghamshire Council. Subscribe today from wherever you get your podcasts.